Kelveth had worked as a scanner technician for 40 years. In all that time, his instruments had never failed him. The Velkari people had spent thousands of years making their scanners perfect. They could read the emotions of a ship captain from 3 light years away. They could tell if a species came in peace or war before a single word was spoken. Their technology was the pride of the Galactic Concordat, so when the anomaly first appeared on his screen, Kelveth assumed it was a malfunction. "Captain Vorshan," he said, keeping his voice calm. "I am detecting something strange at the edge of our patrol zone." Captain Vorshan turned her large, silver eyes toward him. She was old for their kind, with pale blue skin that had faded to almost white over the centuries, but her mind was sharp. "Define strange, technician." "I cannot, Captain. That is the problem." The bridge of the Serenity's promise fell silent. Every crew member knew what those words meant. Velkari scanners could define everything. That was their purpose. That was their gift to the galaxy. Vorshan walked slowly to the scanner station. Her 4 legs made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. "Show me." Kelveth pointed at his display. The anomaly had resolved into shapes now. Ships. A formation of vessels, moving together with perfect coordination. But the readings made no sense. "They read as dead," Kelveth explained. "No life signs. No biological resonance. The metal is cold, silent. But they are moving, Captain. They are communicating with each other. Dead things do not do this." Vorshan studied the display for a long moment. Could they be automated, drone ships? I considered that. But watch this. Kelveth adjusted the scanner focus, pushing deeper into the strange vessels. There, in the center of each ship. Do you see it? Vorshan saw it. Her skin went pale, shifting from blue to almost gray. Among the Velkari, this was the color of fear. "That is not possible," she whispered. At the heart of each vessel burned something that should not exist. Contained fire. Not ordinary fire, but stellar fire. The same reactions that powered suns, somehow held within metal walls. The temperatures were so high that any containment system known to the Concordat would vaporize in seconds, but these ships held the fire steady. Controlled. Tamed. "How many ships?" Vorshan asked. 47, Captain. All carrying the same impossible fire, all reading as dead despite being clearly alive. "Can you scan the crews? Get emotional readings?" Kelveth had already tried. "The ships are blocking my scans. Some kind of electromagnetic shielding. I have never encountered anything like it. It is as if they do not want to be read. Or, Kelveth thought but did not say, as if they had something to hide." Vorshan returned to her command chair. She sat very still, thinking. The Velkari were not warriors. They had never needed to be. Their scanners allowed them to understand any potential enemy so completely that conflicts could be resolved through communication. In 3,000 years of space travel, they had never fired a weapon in anger. But looking at those ships, Vorshan felt something she had rarely experienced in her long life. She felt small. She felt prey. "Should we retreat, Captain?" her first officer asked. His name was Torven, and his skin had also shifted to gray. He was young, barely a century old, and his fear was obvious. "We are a diplomatic vessel," Vorshan said slowly. "Running from an unknown contact without attempting communication would shame our ancestors. It might also provoke the very conflict we fear. But Captain, we do not know what they are. We do not know what they want. Then we will ask them." Vorshan straightened in her chair. "Kelveth, initiate a standard first contact scan. Full protocol. Let us see what we can learn." Kelveth hesitated. Standard first contact scans were passive, gentle. They were designed to introduce the Velkari to new species without causing alarm. They would brush against the strange ships like a soft touch, reading what they could without intrusion. "Yes, Captain," he said. He initiated the scan. The response was immediate. And it was not what he expected. The scanner array screamed, not metaphorically. The bioneural interface that connected Kelveth to the ship's sensors was partly organic. It was designed to translate data into feelings, allowing technicians to understand readings on an instinctive level. Usually, this manifested as subtle impressions: warmth for friendly vessels, cold for threats, colors and sounds that painted pictures in the mind. What Kelveth felt now was pain. He screamed too, his voice joining the electronic shriek of his instruments. Data poured into his mind, contradictory and impossible. The ships were dead but alive, cold but burning, empty but filled with something vast and terrible. His brain tried to process information that could not exist, and the effort felt like knives in his skull. Warning lights exploded across the bridge. Alarms wailed. Crew members rushed to their stations, shouting questions that no one could answer. Vorshan was at his side in seconds. Disconnect him, now. Hands grabbed Kelvith, pulling the neural interface from his temples. The connection severed. The screaming stopped. He collapsed to the floor, gasping, tears streaming down his face. What happened? Vorshan demanded. What did you see? Kelvith could barely speak. His whole body was shaking. In 40 years, nothing had ever overwhelmed his scanners like this. Nothing had ever overwhelmed him. I do not know, he managed. I do not have words. They are wrong, Captain. Everything about them is wrong. They should not exist. The bridge fell silent again. On the main display, the strange fleet held its position, waiting, patient. Then Torvin spoke, his voice barely a whisper. Captain, we are receiving a transmission. All eyes turned to the communication station. The signal was coming from the largest vessel in the strange fleet. Audio only. Should I play it? Torvin asked. Vorshan looked at Kelvith, still trembling on the floor. She looked at her crew, their skin gray with fear. She looked at the impossible ships on her display, burning with contained suns. Then she nodded. Play it. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything they had heard before. It was deep and warm, speaking in flawless, concordant common. The accent was strange, the rhythm unfamiliar, but the words were clear. Valkyrie vessel. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Navy. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations. Please respond. The message ended. Silence returned. Kelvith forced himself to sit up. His hands were still shaking, but his mind was working again. Captain, how do they know our language? We have never met them before. We have no record of them in any database. How can they speak concordant common? Vorshan had no answer. None of them did. The strange ships waited. Their impossible fires burned steady. And somewhere in the void between stars, a species called humanity had just announced its presence to a galaxy that was not ready for them. Vorshan took a deep breath. Her skin slowly shifted from gray back to blue. Fear was natural. Fear was acceptable. But she was a captain, and captains did not let fear make their decisions. Open a channel, she said. Let us talk to these Terrans and learn what they want. She hoped it was peace. She hoped the warm voice and kind words were genuine. But deep in her heart, looking at those ships that made her scanners scream, Captain Vorshan was not sure hope would be enough. Captain Vorshan ordered all scanning to stop. Whatever these Terrans were, they had already demonstrated that standard methods would not work. The crew needed time to recover. Kelveth especially needed rest, though he refused to leave the bridge. I will not abandon my station, he insisted, his voice still weak. Not when we face something like this. Vorshan did not argue. She understood pride. She also understood that Kelveth needed answers more than anyone. The failure of his scanners had shaken him deeply. She called an emergency meeting of her senior staff in the small conference room behind the bridge. 7 Valkyrie gathered around the table, their skin showing various shades of unease. Vorshan had also summoned someone who was not part of the regular crew. Mothra was very old, ancient, even by Valkyrie standards. She served as the ship's historian, a position that most vessels did not bother to fill. Vorshan had always believed in learning from the past. Now she was grateful for that belief. Mothra entered slowly, her 4 legs stiff with age. Her skin had faded to pale silver, almost translucent, but her eyes were bright and alert. You wanted to see me, Captain? Her voice was soft, like dry leaves. I need your knowledge, historian. We have encountered something unprecedented. Ships that block our scanners. Ships carrying contained fusion reactions. Ships crewed by beings who do not register as alive. Vorshan paused. The lead vessel identified itself as belonging to the Terran Navy. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Mothra had gone very still. Her skin did not change color, but something shifted in her ancient eyes. Recognition and fear. Show me the vessels, she said. Vorshan activated the display built into the table. The image of the Terran fleet appeared, floating in blue light. 47 ships, arranged in perfect formation. Mothra stared at them for a long time. Her thin hands gripped the edge of the table. "I had hoped I would die before this day came," she finally said. The room went cold. Vorshan leaned forward. "You know what these are? I know what they might be. What I pray they are not." Mothra touched the display, enlarging one of the vessels. 3,000 years ago, before the Concordat was fully formed, our ancestors discovered something at the edge of the galaxy, a line of beacons, stretching across dozens of light years. They were ancient even then, left by a civilization that no longer existed. "I've never heard of this," Torvin said. "Few have." The Concordat founders chose to bury the information. They thought it was superstition. Madness. The ravings of a dead species that had succumbed to paranoia. Mothra's voice grew quiet. "I am one of the few who has read the original records." "What did the beacons say?" Vorshan asked. Mothra closed her eyes. When she spoke again, it was as if she was reciting from memory. "Beyond this boundary sleeps a species born of a death world. They cage suns within their vessels. They split the smallest parts of matter and use the energy to create weapons of unimaginable destruction. They wage war upon themselves constantly, with tools that poison land for generations. And yet they survive. They always survive. Do not wake them. Do not provoke them. Pray they never look to the stars." Silence filled the room. Vorshan felt her skin shifting to gray despite her efforts to remain calm. "You think these Terrans are the species from the warning?" she asked. "Look at their ships," Mothra said. "They cage suns, you said it yourself. Contained fusion reactions. The beacons warned of exactly this capability, and the beacons were placed at the edge of the galaxy, marking a boundary around a single star system. A system that our explorers have always avoided because the warnings frightened them. The Sol exclusion zone," Kelvith whispered. Everyone knew of it. A region of space that the Concordat had agreed never to enter. The reasons had been lost to time, but the prohibition remained. "Yes," Mothra confirmed. "That is where these Terrans come from. The Death World. The place our ancestors were warned to never disturb." Torvin spoke up, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "If these warnings are true, we should run. Now. Before they decide we are a threat." "They have already seen us," Vorshan replied. "They have already spoken to us. Running now might anger them. It might make them chase us." "The captain is right," Mothra said. "The beacons warned against provocation. Fleeing from peaceful contact could be seen as an insult, or worse, as fear. Predators chase prey that runs. Then what do we do?" Torvin demanded. Before anyone could answer, the communication panel chimed. A message from the Terran fleet. Vorshan accepted it. The same warm voice as before filled the room. "Admiral Chen," the human had called herself, "Valkyrie vessel, we notice that your scanning has stopped. We apologize if our shielding caused distress to your equipment or crew. Our species has learned to guard our thoughts and feelings carefully. It was not intended as hostility. We simply value privacy." A pause. Then the voice continued, somehow even gentler. "We understand that we are strangers to you. We understand that our technology may seem unusual, even frightening. Please know that we mean no harm. We have waited a very long time to meet other intelligent life. We hoped our first contact would be peaceful. We still hope for that." Another pause. "If you are willing, we propose a meeting. Neutral ground. A small station between our positions. We will bring minimal escort. You may bring whatever security makes you comfortable. We want only to talk, to learn about you and share what we are." The message ended. The conference room was silent. Vorshan looked at her officers, reading the fear in their colors. Then she looked at Mothra. "What do you advise, historian?" Mothra was quiet for a long moment. "The beacons warned of what humans can do. They did not say what humans choose to do. There is a difference. A dangerous creature that chooses peace is still offering peace. You think we should accept? I think we have no better option. And I think," Mothra hesitated, "I think there is something the beacons did not tell us. Something their creators did not understand. These Terrans have the power to destroy us. They clearly have that power. Yet their first action was to speak peacefully. Their first concern was that they might have caused us distress." She looked at the image of the Terran fleet, still hanging in the display. "Monsters do not apologize," she said. "Whatever these beings are, They are more complicated than the warnings suggested. Vorshan considered this. She thought about her crew, about her duty to the Concordat, about the ancient warnings and the kind voice that had spoken through her speakers. Then she made her decision. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Tell Admiral Chen that we accept her proposal. We will meet." She did not know if it was the right choice. She did not know if she was leading her crew to peace or death, but she knew that hiding from the unknown had never been the Valkyrie way. They faced the universe with open eyes. They tried to understand what they encountered, even when understanding meant looking into the face of something that made their scanners scream. The neutral station was small. It floated in the empty space between the two fleets, a simple cylinder of metal and glass. The humans had provided it, deploying it from one of their smaller vessels with impressive speed. They had offered to let the Valkyrie inspect it first for weapons or traps. Vorshan had accepted. Her technicians found nothing dangerous, just meeting rooms, air that both species could breathe, and lighting that could be adjusted for different visual needs. They thought of everything, Kelveth reported. The furniture can be modified for different body types. The temperature can be changed for each room. They even provided food and water, suited to Valkyrie biology. "How do they know our biology?" Vorshan asked. Kelveth had no answer. The humans seemed to know many things they should not know. The Valkyrie delegation arrived first. Vorshan led them personally, bringing Kelveth and 4 security officers. The security officers carried weapons, though Vorshan doubted they would be useful. If the humans wanted violence, their warships could destroy the Serenity's promise before a single shot was fired. They waited in the main meeting room. The chairs had been adjusted to fit Valkyrie bodies. The lights were soft, comfortable. It felt welcoming. That somehow made Vorshan more nervous. Then the humans arrived. There were 5 of them. They walked upright on 2 legs, which Vorshan found strange. Their bodies were covered in fabric of different colors, what Valkyrie recognized as military uniforms. They had pale and dark skin, different from each other. Hair grew from their heads in various styles. The leader stepped forward. She was a female, Vorshan determined, based on the subtle biological indicators she could read. Older, perhaps 50 or 60 years by human counting. Her skin was a warm brown color, her hair black with streaks of gray. Her eyes were dark and calm. "Captain Vorshan," she said, and her voice was the same warm sound from the transmissions. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." She extended her hand, palm open. Vorshan had studied Concordat files on various greeting customs during the journey to the station. She reached out with one of her own hands and clasped the human's. The touch was warm, warmer than Vorshan expected, and strong. The human's grip was firm without being crushing. "Admiral Chen," Vorshan replied. "Thank you for the invitation. I will admit, your appearance has raised many questions among my crew." Chen smiled. The expression transformed her face, adding warmth that seemed genuine. "I imagine it has. We have many questions too. Perhaps we can help each other find answers." They sat, the humans on one side of the table, the Valkyrie on the other. Kelveth had set up a portable scanner array nearby, hoping to get readings now that they were close. The humans noticed the equipment. One of them, a tall male with dark skin, leaned toward Chen and whispered something. Chen nodded. "You may scan us if you wish," she said to Vorshan. "We understand that your species relies heavily on such technology for communication. We have lowered our personal shields." Vorshan looked at Kelveth. He hesitated. The memory of pain was still fresh in his mind, but curiosity was stronger than fear. He nodded. "I will try," he said. "With your permission." Chen dipped her head. "Of course." Kelveth activated the scanner. Low power. Gentle. Just a soft touch. Like the brush of fingers against skin. The readings came back clear this time. No screaming, no pain. But what Kelveth saw made him gasp. The humans were alive. Obviously alive. Their hearts pumped blood through their bodies. Their brains crackled with electrical activity. Their emotions registered clearly now. And Kelveth could read genuine curiosity, hope, and a thread of nervousness that matched his own. But underneath all of that, he saw something else. Something vast and old and terrifying. He saw violence. Not current violence. Not intent to harm, but a capacity for destruction that was woven into every cell of their being. Their bodies were optimized for combat in ways that made Kelveth's blood run cold, dense bones that could shatter rock, muscles capable of explosive force, eyes that tracked movement with predatory precision. Their very blood carried cells designed to seal wounds quickly, to keep them fighting even when injured. They were apex predators. Every part of their biology screamed this truth, and yet they sat quietly. They spoke gently. They smiled and made no threatening moves. The contrast was so extreme that Kelveth's mind struggled to process it. Far away, on the human flagship TNS Indomitable, Commander James Okonkwo watched the meeting through a secure video feed. He stood on the bridge, surrounded by crew members who monitored every aspect of the first contact. "The scanner operator is reading them now," a technician reported. "His vital signs are elevated. Stress response." Okonkwo nodded. He had expected this. "He's seeing our biological profile. The combat adaptations. Should we be concerned, sir?" Okonkwo considered the question. The Velkari were pacifists. They had never fought a war. Their entire civilization was built on understanding and communication. Now their scanner technician was seeing, for the first time, what a species built for war looked like from the inside. "No," Okonkwo said finally. "The Admiral prepared for this. She'll handle it." Back on the station, Admiral Chen watched Kelveth's reaction with understanding eyes. She had seen this response before, in simulations and training. Humanity had spent decades preparing for first contact, knowing that their nature would frighten other species. "You see what we are," she said softly. It was not a question. Kelveth could not speak. He simply nodded. "I will not lie to you," Chen continued. "We are a violent species. Our history is filled with war and death. We have developed weapons capable of destroying worlds. We have used them on our own kind." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We are exactly what your ancient warnings described." Vorshan felt ice in her veins. The Admiral was confirming her worst fears. "But we are also more than that," Chen said. "We have the capacity for great destruction." "That is true. But we also have the capacity for choice. And we have chosen, again and again, to be better than our instincts." She gestured to the officers beside her. "These men and women carry weapons. They are trained in combat. They know how to kill efficiently and without hesitation. But they have dedicated their lives to protection, not conquest. They stand between civilians and danger. They use their violent capabilities to preserve peace." Vorshan found her voice. "Why should we believe you? Words are easy. Actions are what matter." Chen nodded, as if she had expected this challenge. "You are right. Which is why I want to offer you something. A demonstration of trust." She stood slowly, keeping her hands visible. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She removed her weapon from its holster and placed it on the table. Then she stepped back, hands raised and empty. "My life is in your hands," she said simply. "If you believe we are a threat, you may act against me. I will not resist. My officers will not resist. We came here to show you that humans can choose peace, even when every instinct tells us to fight." The room was silent. Vorshan stared at the weapon on the table, then at the human admiral who had just made herself completely vulnerable. No predator did this. No hunter gave up its advantage willingly, unless they were telling the truth, unless they really were more than what biology had made them. "Keep your weapon," Vorshan said quietly. "I believe you. At least, I believe you are trying." Chen smiled again, and this time Kelveth's scanners registered something that made his heart skip. Relief. Genuine, overwhelming relief. The humans had been afraid too. Afraid of being rejected. Afraid of being seen as monsters. For the first time since this encounter began, Kelveth felt something other than fear. He felt hope. Admiral Chen retrieved her weapon and placed it back in its holster. The tension in the room had shifted, becoming something less dangerous. But Kelveth knew the moment of truth had not yet arrived. He had seen their biology. He had seen their capacity for violence. But he had not yet seen their history. "Admiral," he said, surprising himself by speaking directly to the human leader. "Your species has lowered its mental shields. You have allowed me to read your basic nature, but I sense there is more, much more." Chen studied him for a long moment. Her dark eyes held wisdom and sadness in equal measure. "You want to see everything," she said. It was not a question. "I need to see everything. My people make decisions based on complete understanding. Without that understanding, we cannot truly trust. Chen looked at her officers. Something passed between them without words. A question asked and answered in the space of a heartbeat. Very well, Chen said. But I warn you, Technician Kelvith. What you see may be difficult. Human history is not kind. I have faced difficulty before. Chen almost smiled. Not like this. But I respect your courage. She turned to her officers. Lower all mental barriers. Give him full access. The effect was immediate. Where before Kelveth had seen only the surface of human nature, now he saw everything underneath. The experience was like falling into an ocean of memory. He saw the beginning. A small, blue planet orbiting an ordinary star. Life struggling to survive in conditions that should have killed it. Volcanoes that covered the sky with ash. Ice ages that froze entire continents. Asteroids that struck the surface and wiped out most living things. Over and over, life on this world faced extinction. Over and over, something survived. He saw the humans emerge. Not the strongest creatures on their planet, not the fastest or the most deadly, but something else. Something that made them different. They could think. They could plan. They could work together in ways no other animal could match. And they could imagine. They could look at the world and dream of something different. He saw them discover fire. The same element that burned their forests and killed their families became a tool in their hands. They did not just use fire. They made fire their servant. He saw them spread across their world, building shelters, creating tools, developing language. They painted pictures on cave walls, expressing thoughts and feelings that no other animal could share. He saw them build civilizations, great cities rising from mud and stone, art and music and literature flowering like gardens in spring, philosophy and science pushing the boundaries of what was known. And he saw them make war. The violence was staggering. Not the simple violence of animals fighting for food or territory. This was organized violence. Systematic violence. Violence raised to an art form. Kelveth watched armies march across continents, leaving devastation in their wake. He saw cities burned to ash. He saw civilians slaughtered by the millions. He saw weapons that grew more terrible with each generation. From simple stones to metal blades to devices that could level entire buildings in seconds. He saw the great wars of the 20th century. Trenches filled with young men dying in mud. Gas that burned lungs from the inside. Bombs that fell from the sky like rain. And then he saw the atom split. The flash of light over Hiroshima burned itself into his consciousness. In a single moment, over 100,000 lives ended. The city became fire and shadow. The survivors envied the dead. Kelveth wanted to pull away. The horror was too much. But he forced himself to keep watching. He had asked for this. He needed to see it through. He saw the aftermath. The radiation poisoning. The birth defects. The land that remained poisoned for generations. He saw humanity look at what it had created and feel something unexpected. Shame, regret, and determination that it must never happen again. He watched as humans built organizations dedicated to preventing war. He saw them establish rules for armed conflict, protecting civilians and prisoners. He saw former enemies become allies, rebuilding together what they had destroyed apart. He saw the civil rights movements, humans who had been oppressed for centuries standing up and demanding equality. He saw them march peacefully in the face of violence, refusing to become what they fought against. He saw medical advances that saved millions of lives. Diseases that had killed for centuries were wiped out by human ingenuity. He saw food production increase until, for the first time in history, there was enough for everyone on the planet. He saw humans reach for the stars, not to conquer, but to explore. He watched them land on their moon, plant a flag, and leave in peace. He heard their leaders speak of humanity as one species, one family, putting aside old hatreds to face the universe together. He saw them fail. Again and again, humans fell short of their ideals. Wars continued. Injustice persisted. The same species that dreamed of peace kept falling back into violence, but he also saw them try again. Every time they failed, they got back up. Every time they fell into darkness, someone lit a candle. The same stubborn refusal to die that had carried them through ice ages and asteroids now carried them through their own worst impulses. He saw the concept that defined them. Hope, not blind optimism. Not naive belief that everything would be fine, but something harder, something stronger, the conviction that tomorrow could be better than today, held in the face of every reason to despair. Humans hoped when hope was irrational. They fought for better futures even when the odds were impossible. They refused to accept that their violent nature was their only nature. Kelveth withdrew from the mental link. He was on the floor, he realized. He had fallen at some point. His body was shaking. Tears streamed down his face. Admiral Chen was kneeling beside him. Her hand rested gently on his shoulder. Her dark eyes were filled with concern. "I tried to warn you," she said softly. Kelveth looked up at her. He looked at this representative of a species that had created weapons capable of destroying worlds, that had killed millions of its own kind in organized slaughter, that carried violence in every cell of its being. "How do you bear it?" he whispered. "The weight of what you are?" Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft with something that might have been sorrow. "We bear it together. We remember what we have done, and we use that memory to guide us toward what we want to become. We do not hide from our darkness. We face it, we acknowledge it, and then we choose, every day, to be better." She helped him stand. His legs were unsteady, but her grip was firm. "You have seen our worst," she said. "You have seen the horrors we are capable of, but you have also seen our best. The choice of which to fear is yours." Vorshan approached. Her skin had shifted through several colors during the experience, finally settling on something Kelveth had never seen before. A mix of fear and wonder, of horror and hope. "Why show us this?" she asked Chen. "You could have hidden your history. You could have shown us only the good." Chen shook her head. "Lies are a poor foundation for friendship. If you are going to trust us, you must trust us knowing exactly what we are, not what we pretend to be." Vorshan considered this for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She reached out and took Admiral Chen's hand in her own. "Your honesty honors us," she said. "Whatever else you are not deceivers." Chen's smile returned, and Kelveth's scanners registered something beautiful. Joy. Pure, genuine joy. The happiness of someone who had feared rejection and found acceptance instead. Monsters did not feel joy like this. Monsters did not crave acceptance. Whatever humans were, they were not monsters. They were something far more complicated and far more wonderful. 6 months had passed since the meeting on the station. The galaxy had changed more in that time than in the previous 1,000 years. Kelveth stood at the center of the Galactic Council chambers, looking out at representatives from every species in the Concordat. Hundreds of beings filled the vast room, their various forms creating a tapestry of life that had taken millions of years to weave. They had all come to hear about the humans. Rumors had spread across the galaxy. Stories of ships that made scanners scream. Tales of a species born on a death world, carrying weapons that could destroy planets. Fear had grown in every corner of civilized space. Now it was time for the truth. Kelveth had been chosen for this task. He was the only being in the Concordat who had experienced the full weight of human history. He was the only one who truly understood what they were. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "You have heard many stories about the species called humanity. Some of those stories are true. Many are exaggerated by fear. Today, I will tell you what I know." He activated a display, and the image of the human fleet appeared above the council floor. 47 ships, their fusion reactors burning steady. These vessels terrified us when we first encountered them. Our scanners could not understand what they were. Ships that read as dead yet moved with purpose. Reactors that contained stellar fire within metal walls. Technology that should not exist. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Many species had heard these descriptions. Seeing the ships made them real. When we scanned the humans themselves, the situation became more frightening. Their bodies are optimized for violence in ways we have never seen. They are apex predators, designed by their harsh world to fight and survive and kill. The murmurs grew louder. Several representatives shifted in their seats, their body language showing fear. "But that is not all I saw," Kelveth continued. "When I looked deeper, I found something the ancient warnings never mentioned. Something the long-dead species who left those beacons never understood." He changed the display. Now it showed human history. Not the violence, not the wars, but something else. Humans building hospitals. Humans declaring universal rights. Humans reaching out hands of peace to former enemies. Humans have the capacity for great destruction. This is true. But they also have the capacity for great compassion. And more importantly, they have the capacity to choose between them. He showed them the aftermath of the nuclear bombs, the horror of radiation sickness, the birth defects. Then he showed them what came after. The treaties, the agreements, the determination that such weapons should never be used again. They looked at their power to destroy and they chose to limit it. Not because they were forced to, not because someone stronger made them, but because they decided it was wrong. The council chamber had gone silent. Every eye, every sensor, every attention was fixed on Kelveth. I saw their concept of hope, he said. It is different from ours. We hope because we expect good outcomes. They hope despite expecting bad ones. Their hope is a choice, made in defiance of evidence, made because they refuse to accept that darkness is inevitable. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humans do not wish to join the Concordat as members. They believe they are too different, too dangerous to integrate fully into our peaceful society. But they have made us an offer. He changed the display one final time. Now it showed a document. The Terran Protectorate Treaty. They want to protect us. The silence shattered. Representatives shouted questions. Some demanded explanation. Others expressed outrage. The idea that a species of apex predators wanted to protect the peaceful Concordat seemed absurd, dangerous, possibly a trap. The Kethari ambassador, a being covered in sharp spines, spoke loudest. Why would they offer this? What do they want in return? No species offers protection without expecting payment. Kelveth waited for quiet. When it came, he answered. I asked Admiral Chen the same question. Her answer was unlike anything I have ever heard from another species. He remembered the conversation clearly. They had been standing on the observation deck of the human flagship, looking out at the stars. We have spent our entire existence fighting each other, Chen had said. Brother against brother. Nation against nation. For thousands of years, the only wars we knew were against ourselves. We are tired of it. We want to fight for something instead of against it. But why us? Kelveth had asked. Why? Protect species you have just met. Chen had smiled. That warm, genuine smile that Kelveth had come to recognize. Because you represent everything we wish we were. Peaceful, understanding, able to solve conflicts through communication instead of violence. We know we can never be like you. Our nature will not allow it. But we can stand between you and the darkness. We can use our violent capabilities to preserve your peaceful civilization. She had looked back at the stars. We want to be heroes. Not rulers, not conquerors, just heroes. It is a very human aspiration. Kelveth shared this answer with the council. When he finished, the chamber was silent again. But the quality of the silence had changed. It was no longer fearful. It was thoughtful. The vote took 3 days. There were arguments, debates, long discussions that stretched through sleepless nights. Some species could not accept the idea of trusting apex predators. Others pointed out that the galaxy held dangers the peaceful Concordat could not face alone. In the end, the treaty passed. Not unanimously, but with enough support to move forward. The signing ceremony was held in the council chamber. Admiral Chen represented humanity, wearing a formal uniform decorated with medals from a dozen conflicts. Her hand shook slightly as she signed her name. After the ceremony, Kelveth found her alone on a balcony overlooking the alien city. Are you well, Admiral? Chen wiped her eyes. She had been crying, Kelveth realized. He had never seen a human cry before. We have never had anyone trust us like this, she said quietly. In all our history, we have been feared, hated, attacked. Even among ourselves, trust has always been fragile. But you saw everything we are. All our sins, all our darkness, and you still gave us a chance. She turned to face him. In her eyes, he saw something he had not expected. Vulnerability, gratitude, and something that looked very much like love. You saw our worst and you did not run away. You saw our capacity for destruction and you still believed we could be more. Do you have any idea what that means to us? Kelveth considered the question. He thought about his own journey over the past 6 months. The fear that had nearly overwhelmed him. The horror of human history. And the slow, growing realization that the most frightening thing about humans was not their capacity for violence, it was their capacity for choice. They could be monsters. Every instinct, every biological drive pushed them toward destruction. But they chose, again and again, to be something else. They fought against their own nature with a determination that bordered on madness, and somehow, impossibly, they kept winning. "We saw everything you are," Kelvith said, "including your light. Especially your light." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are dangerous. You are frightening. You are the most terrifying species the galaxy has ever encountered. But you are also the most hopeful, because if you can overcome your darkness, perhaps there is hope for all of us." Chen smiled through her tears. "That is all we have ever wanted to be, a source of hope." Outside the council building, the human fleet held position in the sky. 47 ships, their fusion reactors burning bright against the stars, weapons of unimaginable destruction, crewed by beings who had chosen to be guardians instead of conquerors, no longer a threat, no longer a warning, a promise. And somewhere, on 1,000 worlds across the galaxy, beings of every shape and kind looked up at those human ships and felt something new. Not fear, not dread, safety. The Death World had sent its children to the stars. They had brought fire and violence and the shadow of apocalypse, but they had also brought hope. And in the end, that made all the difference.